And so Game Week 8 was the Clint Eastwood of Game Weeks, with the FPL community demonstrating the good, the bad and the ugly, and the big name content creators finding themselves squarely in the line of fire. The Game Week began with the good, with first the release of a new episode of FPL Phillips's Who Wants to Be a Millionaire series, which is a particular pleasure of an old puzzle fan like me. This episode starred the FPL Consult, who is a name unknown to me, but who came across as a lovely lad. Then later, following the release of a video of the Arsenal team arriving at the hotel, confusion reigned over whether a hooded figure was Bukayo Saka or one of his other teammates. After Gianni Buttice began an investigation worthy of Jay's messing himself, it was thought the man with no name could be identified by his height. The legendary Andy Martin took over the case, driving his Gran Torino through the night, braving the gauntlet of the security barrier, and then, when he was challenged as to why he was present at the scene, he persuaded the enforcer to take a photograph by the sign to enable a height comparison. This was, without doubt, some of the greatest banter in the history of the FPL community, demonstrating to us all what the spirit of the game should be all about. With regards to bad, well, you just have to look at the points totals to see what we're talking about there, with many high profile players failing to perform and a dismal game week average score of just 36 points, something which we will look into together in just a short while. However, the ugly side of the FPL community raised its head in Game Week 8, with accusations flying around that those big name content creators pulled a Coogan's bluff by first encouraging to their followers that they hold Saka, then going and selling him themselves. The bitterness and recriminations towards the alleged true crime of the so-called Content Creator Cartel following the deadline cast a shadow over all the goodwill engendered the night before, with agitators declaring those they held responsible unforgiven and declaring we all hang 'em high. However, to this uncontent creator, all I see is a bunch of cyberspace cowboys acting like $1 million babies in an attempt to deflect from their own poor performances. Those accusations hold little merit in my eyes, because those big name algorithm acolytes always leave the transfers late, often to their own deadline live streams. Also, the rumours of Saka missing out had increased throughout the week, not least when the Raptors shared that video of the Arsenal fan TV lad saying unequivocally that he would not feature at the weekend. So, to me, objectively, selling Saka was the right thing to do. The lad's a great player, but he was an injury doubt with 3 tough fixtures in his next 4, whereas Foden and Son had both been declared fit by the managers and they have a dream run of games. Furthermore, I distinctly remember the shitstorm created when the godfather of the so-called FPL cartel, Let's Talk Andy, released the information about Gabriel potentially being dropped on his deadline stream before Game Week 1 last year. Indeed, though I can't think of any other examples off the top of my head, my feeling is that if you look through the entire cartel's streaming history, you will find numerous examples of them all sharing rumours with their followers. So I feel they've earned the benefit of the doubt, not least when you consider that withholding this information creates a negligible advantage at best. And objectively, the Saka to Son or Foden transfers were the correct decisions, based on the information we had gleaned as the transfer deadline approached. Never mind exposing some shady cabal, this isn't even an example of the fear hive mind in action. It's just good old-fashioned common sense. In a perfect world, we'd all know the lineups before the deadline, but we must all walk the tightrope of transfers and rotation risks. And to be successful at this game, you simply must be accountable for your own decisions. For being accountable for your choices is the gentlemanly way. And speaking of accountability, I know there are some of you out there who will feel disappointed that, after all my big talk, I did not in the end signed Savinho for game week 8. I get it, I do. But I did say that I would sign him if there were no other issues in my squad. And a £10 million man sitting on my bench is a pretty big issue, especially when Savinho himself had not trained before the press conferences. So I took my time. I thought a lot. I thought of everything that I've got. And though Savinho will still be here tomorrow, my dreams of becoming the world #1 may not. So I did the other move we discussed and I brought in Foden. And then Savinho started and Foden was benched. And then Savinho did nothing and Foden made a sudden impact with an assist off the bench. Ah, FPL, what a wicked web you weave. The rest of my game week was the epitome of the bad, with 2 players scoring a combined 16 points on my bench, with my game week score of 34 points below the game week average, and with my overall rank shot down with magnum force. The ultimate goal now feels further away than ever, and even that game week 12 wildcard feels like it's losing its absolute power, with the price falls of my bad players each week potentially leaving me a fistful of dollars short of the wildcard squad I had in mind. Those 4 game weeks of opportunity now feel like 3 game weeks of terror, and the master plan of triple Man City attack for game week 9 no longer feels so clever. Amid a field of contenders growing ever stronger, I feel like the High Plains drifter, and my game week 9 transfer feels like my biggest of the season. Diaz, Eze and Gabriel are the names on the chopping block. But do I go for Gvardiol? Is Aït-Nouri the answer? Or should I even take a hit and sign a budget player so I can bring in Cole the goal against my own team? I'm leaning towards Gabriel to either Gvardiol or Aït-Nouri, given that Diaz has that huge haul potential against a weakened Arsenal defence, and Eze, for all his lack of points so far, is coming closer and closer every game week to getting that big score. Furthermore, he's got the best fixtures of all 3 potential exits in the run-up to that game week 12 wildcard. Aït-Nouri is the romantic pick, given that I told those game week 6 wildcarders to bring him in, and now they're all doing so just 3 game weeks late. The extra funds that the Algerian assassin would generate for my team would go in very handy towards that game week 10 transfer too. However, last week Gvardiol again demonstrated why he is arguably the greatest attacking defender in the game, and he has 3 lovely fixtures until my game week 12 wildcard. But then again, with Foden in my team and benched in game week 8, do I really want to risk keeping another rotation risk in Diaz? Is it more sensible to sell Diaz for a Maddison, McNeil, a Johnson, Bowen or a Garnacho? Or is bringing in Aït-Nouri and leaving myself the option of Son in game week 10 or even Foden to Salah a more prudent move? There's so much to consider, so many options to weigh up, and I have to be as accurate as the American sniper in whatever shot I take, because before thinking of becoming the world #1, I need to get to the top of the League of Gentlemen, and the rankings in the world's greatest mini-league are as volatile as I can ever remember. Inside that top 15, nobody can gain a foothold, with big rises one week followed by big falls the next for all but the league leader. Indeed, it speaks to the wider FPL world as a whole that managers as good as Deadly Daz, the Grinch, Terminator Triss and Big Steve the Butcher can be cast adrift outside the top 24, all scrambling to get their way back into contention. And the greatest example of the ebbs and flows of the division this week comes in the form of Dan the Dragon, whose team appeared to be drawn from the dead pool and ended up producing 0 returns. Like myself and many others, he suffered from having his best players stranded on his bench, and now the 2021 League of Gentlemen winner has plummeted in the rankings to 15, just 1 place ahead of defending champ Dan Gestoso Cabezas. There were big rises for both Jock and Jeeves and Private Parvesh, with the exclusion of Haaland from their squads critical in the last 3 game weeks of blanks from the Norse force. They'll not relax until after game week 9 though, not with that plum Southampton tie tie to come, and 7 of the 9 managers ahead of them in the table almost certain to give him the armband. It's directly ahead of Jeeves in 9th where he'll find my team, but so tight is the situation that had I started Strand Larsen over Eze, I would be in 3rd place, and the 10 points between myself on 490 and go-karting on 500 are worth almost 400,000 places in the overall rankings. It's still that tight. Progress in this game is never linear, and it's easy to feel all is lost when you're having some trouble with the curve. But all it takes is 1 or 2 good game weeks and we'll all be sailing up that mystic river towards glory. Indeed, in the League of Gentlemen, only 20 points separates Uncaged Page in 12th and John Go-Karting in 2nd. And that 20 points is just one good captaincy decision, yet it's almost a million places in the rankings. In circumstances such as these, you have to keep going. You have to sail through the stormy seas. You have to ride the thunderbolt and lightfoot, and you have to keep the faith you will emerge on the other side stronger. There's still so much of the season to go. We're only 8 game weeks in. There are so many trips still to play, transfers still to make, and we're nowhere near blank or double game week season. And all that ground you're worried about losing in the first 8 game weeks, you could objectively quadruple in the game weeks still to come. And if it sounds like I'm trying to convince myself as much as anyone else, that's because I am. I've got no shame in admitting that I'm nervous. I'm not too proud to admit that the pressure weighs heavily on my shoulders. When it comes to the FPL YouTube scene, I am very much the rookie, and I'm feeling the city heat from those failures of Haaland. The creation of these videos demands an immersion in FPL that I've never experienced before, and the pressure is immense. I have publicly declared my goal of becoming the world #1, yet I'm nowhere near. It's so far over the sea, and I've got no idea whether my makeshift raft will hold or whether I'll vanish without trace. However, it's a good pressure. It's a pressure I enjoy, and it's a pressure I hope will turn my FPL season into a diamond. And while I fell several places in the table, I did close the gap to 2nd place by 4 points. However, the distance to Gladiator Glen continues to grow. Indeed, in the upper reaches of the table, only Hitman Hodgson made up any sort of ground on the Gladiator, and even that was just 1 solitary point. The strategy mighty Morton has deployed: start with Haaland, triple captain in game week 2, and then wildcard him out in game week 3. It's a strategy that's proved spectacularly successful, and yet, in the face of all doubts, Gladiator Glen keeps on proving it was not a fluke. This week, he made that big balls call to sell Jackson and Cole the goal, bringing in budget players Raoul and McNeil. We all thought he was mad to sell points plunderer Palmer, and yet somehow he came out ahead, improving his overall rank to 5,365. Glen Morton breathes that rarefied air because he has the cojones to soar where eagles dare, offering a stunning demonstration of the gentlemanly ways and decimating the algorithm acolytes with ease. And to go back to the earlier point, this is what those complaining about the so-called Content Creator Cartel seem to fail to realise. When those big names are so slavishly devoted to the computers, the programs and the algorithms, and when they are so easily seduced by the safety of the hive mind, the honey is there to be stolen, and the Gladiator reached out and took it, and now all the AI androids are malfunctioning. They're stuck on the 1517 to Paris, while Glen Morton drives his pink Cadillac on the road to glory. And I'm gonna try and catch him, and yes, 68 points feels a big gap, but it's not even 3 points a game week. And I have a sneaking suspicion that the Gladiator plans to bring in Haaland next time out. And if he does, that's when he'll make his first big mistake. Because for all this Southampton fixture is a plum tie, it's just one match. Bringing in Haaland for it though, that's 2 or 3 transfers to course correct afterwards to get back on what appears to be the winning no Haaland strategy. If I was the Gladiator, I'd be bringing in Foden for Saka, because you simply can't leave a £10 million man on the bench. And then next week I'd do Diaz to Salah, because Mighty Mo is in imperious form. Those transfers could easily head Haaland off at the pass, while still retaining plenty of funds to strengthen further in game week 11. Whereas bringing in the misfiring Norse force could leave the Gladiator on his knees in the Colosseum, at the mercy of those vengeful FPL gods and with no place to turn. Having Haaland in the ranks for Southampton is nice, but upending a winning strategy to bring him in is something those algorithm acolytes would do. It's as bad a decision as playing the wild card in game week 6, and I hope the Gladiator allows faith in their gentlemanly ways to overcome fear of one out of form player playing in one match. And it might sound odd to you that I want my rival to succeed, but if I am ever to become the world #1, it'll be because of the performance of my rivals in the world's greatest mini-league. A rising tide lifts all ships, and the almighty task to catch the Gladiator has become my own personal escape from Alcatraz. To have any hope of the ultimate glory, I must first overcome mighty Morton, and I would much rather rise to his outstanding level than see him throw it all away and sink to mine. And while I may look like a pale rider now, I still have that game week 12 wildcard to come, and that's when I believe the season turns in my favour. And perhaps my season is destined to end at Heartbreak Ridge, but until it's over, I'm gonna keep on fighting for this title, and I'm gonna keep on fighting to become the world #1. And I hope you keep on fighting too, because there's an awful lot of FPL to be played. All possibilities lay before us, and we could all end up anywhere from the plains of the Wild West to the greens of the East Wood. And so, ahead of game week 12, let me say, may all your transfers be successes, may all your arrows be green, and may those FPL gods be in your favour. Become the punk that feels lucky by hitting that subscribe button, and we will see you next time.
It's an FPL Nightmare, got me pulling out more, yeah. I'm the greatest football manager to ever grace the old armchair, but the FPL gods hate me, and no one seems to care that my points are only average, and my ranking is not fair.